The Kansas City Chiefs have been to 4 straight AFC Championship games and finished their 2021 season with a division title, a playoff win against the Steelers, a playoff win against the Bills in what was one of the greatest games of all time, before falling to the Cincinnati Bengals at home in the AFC Championship game. They made several big moves this offseason and, of course, most notably, traded star receiver Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins. There's been several questions this offseason about how the offense will look this year and how they will look without Tyreek Hill in this offense and how this will affect Patrick Mahomes moving forward. And in today's video, we are going to discuss the Chiefs' outlook for this year and a little beyond that as well. And without further ado, let's begin. And we are going to start today's video by discussing one of the more underrated parts of the Kansas City roster, and it is the offensive line. The Chiefs are one of the most successful organizations in football over the past 5 years, and there is a reason for that. When they traded up in 2017 on draft night to get Patrick Mahomes, they didn't do what other franchises have done, looking directly at you, Jacksonville, and basically said, look, you're the franchise quarterback, go make something happen. And Jacksonville has done a lot more since drafting Trevor, but leading up to that rookie year was woeful, and not surprisingly, they finished with the worst record in the entire NFL. The opposite was done for Mahomes in Kansas City, and Patrick took a team in 2017 that lost in the wildcard round of the playoffs to the AFC Championship game in 2018. Part of the success was due to the offensive line, which was solid then, but now features two of the best young interior offensive linemen in football in Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. It's not often you hear people rave about a second-year center, but you hear it with Creed, and there is a reason for that. And Trey Smith fell big time in the 2021 draft due to injury concerns and was perceived as an early to mid-second round pick, really at worst, all throughout the draft process. Because of these concerns, Trey free fell until Kansas City swooped in the 6th round and received an absolute steal. And having these two linemen along with Orlando Brown, Joe Thuney, and Andrew Wiley are a great group of guys to protect the $500 million man in Super Bowl champion quarterback Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs' weapons are still very good despite losing Tyreek Hill, and we will get to that later and why that's not a concern he left. But for now, Travis Kelce is in the midst of 6 straight 1,000-yard years. Juju Smith-Schuster is a player who has went for over 1,400 yards in a season before in his career and is now still 25 years old, and they just drafted Sky Moore in the 2nd round of the 2022 NFL Draft. And not surprisingly, I am very high on the Chiefs entering the season, as we have seen it now for going on half a decade with Mahomes, Kelce, and Reed, and generally speaking, these guys figure it out, especially when their backs are against the wall. This team started out 3-4 through 7 games last year, and Kansas City's defense wasn't just bad compared to the rest of the league in the 2021 season. Through the first 5 games or so, they had given up more points per game than any team in NFL history aside from the 2008 Lions, who, as we know, finished 0-16. Despite being a 3-4 team through 7 games, which peaked with a 27-3 loss on the road to the Titans, they went 9-1 the rest of the way in the regular season, with their only loss coming to the Bengals in a game that took Joe Burrow to throw for 446 yards and 4 touchdowns just to beat the Chiefs in Week 17. And Jamar Chase had an okay game that day as well, I guess you could say that. But the point is, and the reason I bring this up, is the Chiefs are routinely successful because they make adjustments and do not stay complacent. How many times have we seen a franchise have a successful year, then never be close to that team again? Reaching 4 straight AFC Championship games is an incredible accomplishment and nothing to scoff at. And the reason I bring that part up at all is because I think there is a chance Kansas City has a tough time with their first 7 games this year like they did last. They play 5 playoff teams in their first 7 games from last year, and the only 2 teams that did not make the playoffs that they play in their first 7 are the Chargers and Colts, both who went into Week 18 last year with a postseason appearance on the line, and both of which improved this offseason. Playing in Arizona, Indy, and Tampa for 3 of your first 4 games, and the only home game being on 3 days rest versus a division rival who is chomping at the bit to take reign of the AFC West this year, is a hell of a start to the season, even for the big bad Chiefs. Fortunately for the Chiefs, the schedule lightens up a bit in the second half of the year and isn't easy by any means, but also is not the 7 games of hell to start their season. And we discussed the Tyreek trade earlier and how it will affect their offense, and it will to a degree, but what has to be remembered is the Chiefs' offense does not go solely on the deep ball or on the highlight reel plays we saw them make time and time again. Tyreek Hill in 2021 had 111 receptions for 1,239 yards and 9 touchdowns, and only 9 of Tyreek's 111 receptions were from 20-plus yards from the line of scrimmage. 21 receptions were from behind the line, 53 were between 0 and 9 yards, and the remaining 28 were between 10 and 19 yards from the line of scrimmage. This is when Patrick released the football to where the football landed in Tyreek's arms to be clear. Also, not surprisingly, the average yards per reception spiked way up for those 9 beyond 20-plus yards, but 9 catches for 334 yards and 2 touchdowns, which was what Tyreek had when targeted beyond 20 yards in 2021, will not break the Chiefs' offense. Sure, Kansas City may not have a receiver that truly presents fear in a defense the way Tyreek did, and will continue to do in Miami, as his speed, agility, and acceleration truly make him a one-of-one player. But a rookie Sky Moore at just 22 years old has sky-high potential, no pun intended, when factoring in he will have the opportunity to play with Patrick Mahomes for a decade. And what will also benefit Sky is how often the Chiefs throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Patrick Mahomes led the NFL last year in attempts behind the line with 138 and also led the NFL with 6 passing touchdowns. As simple as this is, also factoring in the head coach they have in Andy Reid and how he will call games and adjust accordingly, the Chiefs' offense has little to nothing to worry about in 2022. The defense does concern me a bit, and this is a defense that lost veteran leader Tyrann Mathieu, who went to the Saints this offseason, but replaced him with Justin Reid. I loved a few of their draft picks in Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, Brian Cook, and Leo Chenal, but what needs to be remembered here for the Chiefs, especially when projecting these defensive guys, is sure, they can be good players at the NFL level, and there is a good chance at least one of them makes a Pro Bowl or 2. But if you're in Buffalo or in Cincinnati, LA, any of these juggernaut offensive teams in January, would you trust McDuffie in one-on-one coverage with your season on the line in January? At the moment, the answer to me is probably not, and I worry that especially within the first 7 games, we're going to see several rookie mistakes from these guys, and that's not intended to be disrespectful as much as it is to acknowledge it happens at the NFL level, and by the way, it is to be expected. This also does not mean to count the Chiefs entirely out, and because their defense, they won't be able to seriously compete in 2022. While I don't expect this team to be quite as good as Chiefs teams we've seen over the past few years, they are still going to be one of the best in the NFL. And that's not disrespectful, the Chiefs team's comment, it's because of the standard they've set and how good they've been over the past 4 years. I do think Patrick Mahomes will be more efficient this year, and a big difference between 2020 and 2021 for himself was the interception total. More specifically, Patrick had just 1 interception on 257 attempts in 2020 from 0 yards of depth to 9 yards of depth, compared to 8 interceptions on 268 attempts in 2021, which, by the way, from this depth, led the NFL. 2021 was also the first year since 2018 where Patrick threw double-digit interceptions. The Chiefs running back by committee will be fine, and I don't worry about them, especially behind the big bruising offensive line, and that has to be remembered even if you're not a Clyde Jarrett or Ronald Jones fan. The offensive line will be solid, and by having a committee, each back will be fresh well into the third and fourth quarters of each game. Juju Smith-Schuster will fit right into the offense and is a very good player, and will remind everyone of that this fall, especially with opposing defenses having to worry about Travis Kelce on top of it. I do expect the Chiefs to struggle at the beginning of 2022, and potentially even go into the bye with a losing record, and for the second consecutive year, be 3-4 through 7 games. But like last year, I do think they will figure it out, and by season's end, we will be referring to them as the same old Chiefs. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would not only be very much appreciated, but help tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. Please join the Discord as well. The link is in the description, and until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.